Spring on the lake is a gentle awakening. The cold grip of winter loosens and the world begins to breathe again. Tench are creatures of mystery, quietly powerful. Springtime tench fishing is more than a pursuit, it's a ritual. Depending on the year, May is usually the sweet spot, with life beneath the surface starting to wake up around mid-March. This coincides perfectly with the river close season, so provides ample time to refine the tactics and build up a picture of the venue that you choose to fish, all in preparation for that short window of opportunity before spawning when they're active and at the best weight. Over the last few years, spawning on the lakes I fish have been around the second week in June. However, they can go much earlier or even later, depending on conditions. In my experience, once the fish have spawned, they don't get back to feeding as readily as other species, and it sometimes takes a good few weeks to start getting bites again. For me though, that's my campaign over. I may still pick up the odd tench after this point, but I'm certainly not targeting them. For me, it's back onto the rivers, so that mid-March to mid-June close season perfectly frames my annual tench fishing. All that being said though, this is not the time for rushing. Tench fishing demands patience, a quiet confidence, so I try to get on the bank early and sharpen the tools prior to that prime specimen window. In early spring, everything is more delicate. They feed with caution, so I adapt my baiting accordingly. And as the weather heats up and the activity increases, I increase the volume of bait. I've used the same spot mix now for a number of years and have 100% confidence in it, no matter the venue. That's 50% fresh hemp seed and 50% 2mm pellets. That could be krills, it could be halibuts, or just a combination of any that I can get my hands on really. To that, I add a good glug of molasses for sweetness and a little squirt of hemp oil. And then, depending what I'm using on the hook, I might add half a tin of sweet corn, half a pint of casters, or just a handful of maggots. A method feeder with a small yellow wafter certainly has its place in my approach, but 80 to 90% of the time I'm using a helicopter rig with a short hook link and a maggot feeder, sometimes a couple of worm sections or fake caster if there's nuisance fish. But more often than not, I'm using the absolute undisputed king of tench baits, which for me is the red maggot. I also mix up a small amount of dark ground bait, any will do. I use this just to plug the feeder once I've loaded it with maggots, and that's just to ensure that the cap stays in place when it hits the water. The feeder I'm using is a 45 gram Drennan feeder bomb that's attached to 12 pound main line with a 3-inch fluorocarbon hook link down to a size 12 Drennan specialist hook, and depending on the bottom, I'll either present the maggot on the deck or pop it up with a small piece of red foam. Location is everything, and never just cast and hope. In spring, tench are mobile, but they follow patterns. Shallows near reed beds or pads that warm quickly and hold natural food are good areas to have a look at. Look out for fizzing and all the usual signs of tench. Out in open water, I'm looking for weed beds and I'm fishing as close to them as I can. Sometimes you get a clear spot right next to a weed bed just purely by chance, but I'm also happy to fish in low-lying weed and silt and stuff with that helicopter rig if necessary. You don't need heavy gear under normal circumstances. A 1 1/4 test curve rod lets the tench show the muscle. However, on these big windswept gravel pits, when targeting big hard-fighting tench, with huge weed beds sometimes to try and avoid, I tend to opt for a 1 3/4 barbel rod. I fish these on alarms with light bobbins, Essentially just scaled down carp tactics, so using a bare lead to find spots and a spom to put the bait in.
Here's a little tip for you. Once you've wrapped up your rods to the correct distance, I like to use a little piece of this. They call it marker elastic. All different brands do it, you can just pick up the one that you use, but I like to cut a little piece about 10 inches or so. And then if you just make a little loop in line with the line, and then wrap it through the loop and the line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wraps, that's usually about enough. Pull it down gently, not all the way tight. Bit of saliva, tease the knot down, bit more saliva, tease it down, tease it down. Just keep going with it until you get the knot really tidy and small, take your time with it. And then just trim it to leave a little ½ centimetre either way.
Now that you've got your marker in place, you just wait to hear and feel the elastic running through the eyes on the cast, and with a little bit of practice you'll be able to feather that down bang onto your spot every single time. Now, it would be remiss of me to make a video about tench and not mention float fishing. It's pure bliss on a spring morning, watching that float lift and slide away. The nostalgia of it, you just can't really put it into words. It's a huge component of what makes tench fishing special. However, for the venues I've been targeting over the last 3 years or so, it's just not a practical way to approach them.
When I started the channel, one of the things I really wanted to achieve was to capture the beauty and tranquility of some of these amazing places that I go to. And just look at that behind me. It's like a 50-acre sheet of glass tonight, which is quite rare really, because these big windswept pits usually have a bit of a chop on. But every now and again you get little moments like this. And if I could distill it down into just one image that could explain why I go fishing, that's it right there. This could be my favourite lake in the world.
There is a lot to consider, and a lot of effort goes into every session, but if you're lucky, the tip pulls round, the line flies out the reel, and you lift into it. And you just know, it's not frantic, it's just that deep, dogged strength. And if the tackle is balanced, it's as good a sport as any. And with a small hook and feeder bumping around, plus all of the numerous weed beds to avoid and other lines, it really can be heart-stopping stuff. If at the end of all that you manage to slip your net under one of these beautiful fish, then it's made all that effort worthwhile in my opinion. After a brief moment of admiration, you return the fish gently, and as the ripples fade, so does the world. This for me is what tench fishing is all about.
Just add 20 minutes of absolute carnage. Look at that. What's in there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Spring tench fishing is about presence, patience, rhythm. So when the mornings grow warmer, go. The tench will be waiting for you.